My name is Audrey Jensen, and at 17, I learned that words could break more than silence. Dad smashed my jaw when I finally stood up to him about college applications. Mom just laughed from the kitchen doorway. That's what you get for being useless. I tasted copper and shame as I swallowed my own blood. They thought pain would silence me, but what my parents never understood was that I had been quietly building an exit plan for years. Before I tell you how I escaped, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to hear stories of survival like mine. I used to think my childhood was normal. All families had rules, right? My father, Thomas Jensen, was respected in our community as a successful insurance executive. His colleagues would smile and pat me on the head at company picnics, telling me how lucky I was to have such a dedicated father. My mother, Diana, was the picture of suburban perfection, with her carefully maintained blonde highlights and collection of casserole recipes. From the outside, we were the American dream family, living in a two-story house with a perfectly manicured lawn in a quiet Massachusetts suburb. The first time I realized something wasn't right was when I was 7. I had brought home my first grade report card with all A's except for a B in handwriting. My father's face changed when he saw that B. It wasn't just disappointment. His eyes darkened and a vein pulsed at his temple as he lectured me for nearly 2 hours about standards and expectations. I sat perfectly still, afraid that any movement might unleash something worse. When I started crying, he slammed his hand on the table so hard that my juice spilled. Then he made me clean it up while telling me that crying was for babies, not Jensen women. My mother watched from the doorway, arms crossed. Listen to your father, Audrey. He only wants what's best for you. But her eyes never met mine. That became her signature move over the years, looking slightly above or past me whenever things got bad. Rules multiplied as I grew older. Grades had to be perfect. My clothing had to be approved before leaving the house. Friends needed to come from appropriate families, and social activities were limited to those that reflected well on the family name. The concept of family image was drilled into me daily. What would people think became the measuring stick for every decision, every action. When I was 9, I made the mistake of telling my teacher, Mrs. Collins, that my father had grabbed my arm so hard it left bruises because I spoke during one of his business calls. She called my parents in for a conference. That evening, my father was unnervingly calm as he explained to me the concept of family loyalty. We don't air our dirty laundry, Audrey. Family matters stay within these walls. The next day, my mother transferred me to a different class, and 2 months later, we moved to a new school district altogether. I learned to find escape in books and writing. My journal became my true home, the only place I could be honest. I wrote about the fear that lived in our house like another family member, always present at the dinner table, lurking in doorways, hiding behind closed doors. I wrote about how my father rarely hit us because he didn't need to. The threat of his rage was control enough. My mother had her own methods. That dress looks nice, though it does highlight your weight issues, she would say with a tight smile. Or, your essay won the school contest. That's surprising given your limitations. Every compliment came with a barb attached designed to keep me grateful for approval, while never quite feeling worthy of it. My brother James was born when I was 6. By the time he was 11, he had perfected the art of invisibility. He spoke softly, moved quietly, and developed an uncanny ability to sense when our father's mood was shifting. He would disappear to his room before the storm hit. Sometimes I envied his radar, but mostly I worried about him growing up believing that disappearing was the only way to survive. Our extended family saw us only during carefully orchestrated holiday gatherings where my father was charming and generous. My mother was warm and attentive, and James and I were polite and accomplished. My grandmother would squeeze my hand and say, "Thomas has done so well for himself. You have such a perfect family." I would smile and say, "Thank you," while counting the minutes until we could leave. The neighbors thought we were the perfect family too. They saw my father washing his car on Saturdays, coaching James's little league team, and bringing my mother flowers on visible occasions. They saw my mother hosting garden club meetings and delivering homemade bread to new neighbors. They saw me with my straight-A report cards and James with his baseball trophies. What they didn't see was what happened when the front door closed. By the time I turned 16, I had become a master of navigating my father's expectations. I maintained a 4.0 GPA, participated in acceptable extracurriculars like debate team and student government, and never gave him an obvious reason to explode. But as college approached, the invisible leash tightened. My best friend Zoe provided my only glimpse into normal family life. At her house, voices were raised in laughter, not anger. Opinions were debated, not punished. The first time her father asked what I thought about a political issue at dinner, I froze, automatically looking for the trap. When I realized he genuinely wanted my perspective, I nearly cried into my lasagna. "Your family is weird," Zoe told me once as we walked home from school. "No offense, but your dad scares me and your mom never seems to actually look at you when she talks." I shrugged it off with practiced casualness. "They just have high expectations." "No," Zoe insisted. "My parents have high expectations too. They expect me to try my best and be a decent human being. Your parents expect you to be perfect, and that's not the same thing." That conversation stuck with me as my academic achievements started bringing attention from colleges. I was named editor of the school newspaper, won state-level writing competitions, and was selected for a prestigious summer writing workshop. Each accomplishment brought tense congratulations from my father, always followed by reminders that local universities had excellent programs that would allow me to live at home. "There's no reason to go across the country for college," he would say, his tone making it clear this wasn't actually up for discussion. "It's an unnecessary expense, and frankly, Audrey, I don't think you're ready for that level of independence." My mother became increasingly critical as college approached. She would comment on how I would never find a husband if I was so focused on books, or how my stubborn streak would make it difficult to maintain relationships. Each criticism was delivered with a smile and often in front of others, making it impossible to defend myself without seeming overly sensitive. The academic team incident crystallized everything. I had been selected for the state competition, but needed a parent's signature on the permission slip. My father refused to sign it. "This competition falls on the same weekend as my company retreat," he explained. "We attend as a family every year." "But Dad, this could help with college scholarships," I argued. "Can't I just miss the retreat this once?" His eyes darkened. "This is exactly the kind of selfishness I'm concerned about, Audrey. Family obligations come first, always." I made the mistake of continuing to press my case, mentioning that my English teacher, Mrs. Larson, had specifically coached me for this competition. His hand shot out, grabbing the permission slip and tearing it in half. "Discussion over." Mrs. Larson was the first teacher since elementary school who seemed to see beyond my careful facade. When I told her I couldn't participate in the competition due to family commitments, she studied my face too intently. "Audrey, you have extraordinary talent," she said quietly, "and talent comes with responsibility. Sometimes we have to make difficult choices to honor that gift." I didn't understand what she meant then, but her words planted a seed. Mrs. Larson gave me books that opened new worlds, writers whose words made me feel less alone. She introduced me to universities with strong writing programs, casually mentioning scholarships that could make them accessible. My journal became more than just an emotional outlet during this time. It became evidence. I documented every incident, every controlling edict, every manipulative tactic. I didn't know what I would do with this record, but something told me it might be important someday. My father found my journal during one of his room inspections when I was 16 and a half. He called a family meeting, reading selected entries aloud at the dinner table, mocking what he called my dramatic teenage fantasies. My mother laughed at the particularly painful parts, shaking her head at my overactive imagination. James stared at his plate, shoulders hunched. I sat perfectly still, my face burning with humiliation as my private thoughts were used as weapons against me. After that incident, my father became surprisingly kind for several weeks. He brought home my favorite dessert, approved a shopping trip with Zoe, even complimented my essay for English class. This pattern was familiar. The punishment followed by love bombing. It was more disorienting than consistent cruelty would have been. Just when my guard started to lower, his control would reassert itself in new ways. When Jake Murphy asked me to the junior prom, I experienced my first moment of genuine rebellion. Jake was kind and smart and made me laugh. My father, however, deemed him unsuitable because Jake's father was just a mechanic. When I tried to argue pointing out Jake's acceptance to engineering programs, my father went eerily quiet. "You will not associate with this boy," he said with finality. End of discussion. That night, I created my first secret email account and began researching colleges on library computers instead of at home. I looked specifically at schools at least 1,000 miles away with strong financial aid programs. I didn't know how I would make it happen, but for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life beyond my father's control. As I pulled away, my father's attention increasingly turned to James. My brother was quieter than me, more sensitive, less naturally academic. I started intercepting as much of my father's criticism as possible, deliberately drawing his fire when I saw James becoming the target. It was a dangerous game, but I couldn't bear to see my brother's spirit crushed the way mine had been. Senior year arrived with a flurry of college recruitment letters that I carefully intercepted from the mail. My SAT scores had placed me in the top percentile nationally, and my writing portfolio had caught the attention of several prestigious programs. Mrs. Larson pushed me to apply for a specialized creative writing scholarship at Pacific Northwest University, 3,000 miles from home. "They only select 5 students nationally," she told me. "But I've already spoken to the department chair. They're very interested in your application." I completed the application in the school library during lunch periods, using Mrs. Larson's classroom address for correspondence. When the early acceptance and scholarship offer arrived in March, I felt equal parts elation and terror. I had an escape route. Now I just needed the courage to take it. The collision course was set when my father found university brochures in my backpack during one of his random inspections. I had grown careless, forgetting to transfer them to my locker at school. That evening at dinner, he placed them in the center of the table like evidence at a trial. "Would you like to explain these?" His voice was deadly calm. I took a deep breath. "I'm researching college options." "I thought we had discussed this. You'll attend state university and live at home." "I'd like to consider other options." My voice sounded stronger than I felt. My father's eyes narrowed. "You don't need options. Your mother and I have decided what's best. I'm 18 next month. Shouldn't I have some say in my future?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. My mother set down her fork. "After all we've sacrificed for you," she said with practiced disappointment, "this is how you repay us, with ingratitude." "It's not ingratitude," I said, my heart pounding. "It's just that Pacific Northwest University has an amazing writing program, and they're offering me a full scholarship." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face transformed as the information registered. "You applied to universities behind our backs." His voice was dangerously soft. "I just wanted to see what options—" His fist hit the table so hard the dishes jumped. "There are no options. You live under my roof. You follow my rules." "Thomas," my mother cautioned, glancing toward the open window where neighbors might hear. He lowered his voice, but the intensity remained. "After everything we've done for you, the ungrateful, you think you can just walk away from your family obligations, your responsibilities here." "What responsibilities?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "You've never let me make a single decision for myself. You control everything I do, everything I wear, everyone I talk to. That's not parenting, that's prison." The blow came so fast I didn't see it coming. His fist connected with the side of my face with such force that I heard a sickening crack as my jaw displaced. The pain was blinding immediate. I fell sideways off my chair onto the dining room floor, my mouth filling with blood. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard my mother's laugh, not of humor, but of bitter satisfaction. "That's what you get for being useless, Audrey, for thinking you're better than this family." James made a small sound like a wounded animal. My father's attention snapped to him. "Go to your room. Now." As James fled, my father grabbed my arm, yanking me to my feet. The movement sent fresh waves of agony through my broken jaw. "Clean yourself up," he ordered. "And if you think about telling anyone about this, remember that no one will believe you. I'm a respected member of this community. You're just a melodramatic teenager." The emergency room visit that followed was a masterclass in my father's manipulation. He drove me himself, one hand on the wheel, the other squeezing my arm in warning. By the time we reached the hospital, he had transformed into the concerned, slightly embarrassed father. She fell down the stairs, he told the intake nurse with just the right mix of concern and exasperation. She was running in the house after being told not to. The nurse glanced at me with mild skepticism. But my swollen jaw made it impossible to contradict him even if I dared. As we waited for x-rays, he leaned close to my ear. "Remember, Audrey, one word about anything else, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And so will James." The mention of my brother silenced any lingering thoughts of rebellion. The doctor confirmed my jaw was fractured in 2 places, requiring it to be wired shut for healing. Throughout the procedure, my father played the role of devoted parent perfectly, asking detailed questions about my care, expressing appropriate concern, even tearing up at one point when the doctor explained the recovery process. But in the car ride home, his true face returned. "Let this be a lesson," he said coldly. "Your mother and I decide what's best for this family. Not you. Ever." Looking at my reflection in the car window, my face swollen and distorted, something crystallized inside me. The physical pain was excruciating, but it was the recognition of my complete vulnerability that truly terrified me. If he could do this now, what would happen when I truly defied him? Mrs. Larson visited during my recovery, bringing the assignments I was missing from school. My mother hovered nearby during these visits, ensuring no private conversation could occur. But Mrs. Larson's eyes spoke volumes. When she left, she pressed a note into my hand disguised as a homework assignment. Later, hidden in my bathroom, I read, "Whatever happened, it wasn't your fault. When you're ready to talk, I'm here." During those weeks of recovery, my mother worked tirelessly to ensure my isolation. She informed the school I was too embarrassed about my appearance to accept visitors. She screened my calls, telling friends I was sleeping or in too much pain to talk. She monitored my text messages and eliminated my small freedoms one by one. James would sneak into my room at night, sitting silently beside my bed, occasionally reaching out to squeeze my hand. The fear in his eyes told me he had witnessed everything, and the guilt of exposing him to that violence was almost worse than my physical pain. The jaw healed slowly. 6 weeks of liquid nutrition through a straw. 6 weeks of being literally silenced. My father used this time to reassert his dominance, making a show of caring for me while simultaneously reminding me of my dependence. He brought home special protein shakes to help you heal faster, while commenting that this forced diet might help with my weight issues. My mother alternated between performative nurturing when others were watching and bitter asides when we were alone. "I hope you've learned your lesson," she would say while changing my ice pack. "Your father has been under so much stress because of you." The school counselor made one half-hearted visit, clearly already convinced by my father's accident narrative. When she asked if everything was okay at home, my mother answered for me while I sat mute with my wired jaw. "We're taking excellent care of her. It's been a difficult time for our family, but we're getting through it together." As I stared at my damaged face in the mirror each night, something was changing inside me. The girl who had lived in fear was being replaced by someone else, someone who understood that compliance would never bring safety. The only path forward was escape. The day my jaw was unwired, I began my silent rebellion. In public, I was the model daughter seemingly chastened by my accident. I nodded at my father's pronouncements about attending the local university. I helped my mother with dinner and thanked her for her care during my recovery. I created the perfect illusion of submission. But behind this mask, I was methodically preparing for war. My first act was creating a secure documentation system. I set up an email account under a false name accessible only on school computers. I used it to start a digital journal where I recorded every incident in clinical detail, including dates, times, and exact quotes. I described the jaw-breaking incident with forensic precision. I took photos of my healing face at different stages, storing them in the secure account. During computer lab time, I researched domestic abuse resources, clearing my browsing history afterward. I found a hotline number and called from a payphone near the library. I need to talk to someone, I whispered to the woman who answered, but I don't know if what's happening to me counts as abuse. Why don't you tell me what's happening and we can figure it out together? Her name was Sandra, and her calm voice became my lifeline. Over the next few weeks, through carefully planned calls, Sandra helped me understand that my situation wasn't just strict parenting, as my parents had always framed it. The control, isolation, and now physical violence formed a clear pattern of abuse. She also helped me develop a safety plan. The most dangerous time for someone in your situation is when they try to leave, she explained. We need to make sure you have everything in place before you make any moves they can detect. Under her guidance, I began gathering essential documents. During a rare unsupervised moment in my father's home office, I located my birth certificate and social security card, making copies that I stored in my locker at school. I researched how to open a bank account without parental knowledge once I turned 18. I got a part-time job at the school library that my parents approved of because it looked good on college applications. Every dollar I earned was carefully split between the small amount I showed my parents and the cash I secreted away in a hollowed-out copy of Jane Eyre that Mrs. Larson helped me prepare. Mrs. Larson became my most important ally. When my acceptance letter from Pacific Northwest University arrived at her classroom address, she showed it to me during a legitimate tutoring session. "They're still holding your scholarship," she told me quietly. "I explained your circumstances in general terms. The housing office will hold a dorm room for you regardless of when you complete the paperwork." My 18th birthday passed, with my father believing his message had been received. He even commented on my improved attitude and maturity in accepting the path he'd laid out. My mother seemed to relax her vigilance, satisfied that I had been properly subdued. "You see how much easier life is when you don't fight your father," she said one evening as we washed dishes. "He only wants the best for you." I nodded, keeping my eyes down. I understand now. What I understood was that I needed to be smarter than they were. Every act of compliance was buying me time and freedom to prepare. Through careful research, I found my father's estranged sister, Aunt Marissa. He never spoke of her, but I had discovered old family photos in the attic years ago. Through social media, I located her living in Seattle, just hours from the university that had accepted me. I crafted a careful message explaining who I was and asking if we could connect. Her response came within hours. "I've wondered about you for years. Your father cut contact when you were a toddler after I confronted him about his controlling behavior toward your mother. Whatever you need, I'm here." Another piece of my escape plan fell into place. I developed a coded communication system with James, a way for us to check in with each other that would seem innocent to our parents. Homework questions that were actually emotional check-ins. Conversations about TV shows that were actually discussions about our father's current mood and threat level. "I can't leave you behind," I told him during one rare moment alone. "You have to," he insisted. "If you try to take me now, they'll come after both of us. Get established somewhere safe first." At 14, my brother had the strategic mind of a much older person, another survival adaptation. The digital evidence file grew. I recorded conversations when possible. I documented the progression of my jaw healing with time-stamped photos. I wrote down every memory of past abuse I could recall, creating a timeline that stretched back to my earliest memories. As graduation approached, I felt equal parts determination and terror. The prospect of freedom was intoxicating, but the fear of my father's reaction was very real. I had seen the damage he could inflict when crossed. What would he do when I truly broke free? Graduation day arrived with perfect June weather and a sense of surreal tension. I wore the white dress my mother had selected, sat where I was told to sit, and smiled for the countless photos my father insisted on taking. From the outside, we looked like any proud family celebrating their daughter's achievement. I was named valedictorian, but had declined to give a speech claiming lingering anxiety about public speaking after my accident. The real reason was fear that my father would punish any perceived slight or insufficient gratitude in my address. Better to remain silent than risk his wrath so close to escape. After the ceremony, my father intercepted every attempt by friends or teachers to speak with me alone. His hand remained firmly on my shoulder, his smile never reaching his eyes as he steered conversations toward his preferred topics. When Mrs. Larson approached to congratulate me, his grip tightened painfully. "Audrey has so appreciated your mentorship," he told her with practiced warmth, "though we're looking forward to her studying closer to home this fall." Mrs. Larson's eyes met mine briefly. "Whatever path Audrey chooses, I know she'll excel." My mother spent the reception comparing me unfavorably to other graduates. "Sophia's dress is much more flattering than yours," she whispered. "And did you see Madison's honor cords? How many did you get again?" "Just 3. The celebration continued at home with my father's carefully selected guests, his business associates, and their families' neighbors. He wanted to impress a few relatives who still believed in our family's perfect facade. I played my role flawlessly, thanking everyone for coming, accepting congratulations with appropriate modesty, deflecting questions about college with vague references to finalizing plans. When the last guest departed, my father called for a family meeting in the dining room, the same room where he had broken my jaw months earlier. The memory made my heart race, but I forced my breathing to remain steady. "Now that the pageantry is over," he began, "it's time to discuss your enrollment at State University. I've taken the liberty of registering you for orientation next month." I looked at my mother, who was busying herself collecting dessert plates, deliberately avoiding my eyes. James sat rigid in his chair, staring at his hands. This was the moment I had been preparing for and dreading. "Actually," I said quietly, "I've decided to accept the scholarship from Pacific Northwest University." The silence that followed was absolute. My father's face remained perfectly composed, but his eyes darkened. "I don't recall asking for your decision," he said softly. "The matter is settled. You're attending state and living at home." I took a deep breath. "I'm 18 now. I've been accepted with a full scholarship that covers tuition, room, and board. It's a tremendous opportunity." "An opportunity to what?" my mother interjected sharply. "To abandon your family, to throw away everything we've done for you. It's an opportunity to study writing with some of the best professors in the country," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. My father stood slowly, his controlled movement more frightening than an outburst would have been. "Let me be very clear," he said, walking around the table toward me. "You will not be attending any university across the country. You will not be throwing away the plans we have made for your future. And you will not continue this disrespectful attitude." He was beside me now, towering over my seated form, his presence designed to intimidate, as it had thousands of times before. But this time, I did not cower. "I've accepted the scholarship," I stated, looking directly at him. "I'm going." His hand shot out, grabbing my upper arm with bruising force, yanking me to my feet. "You ungrateful little—" The front doorbell rang, its cheerful chime incongruous with the tension in the room. My father froze years of conditioning about public appearances, overriding his rage. He released my arm, but leaned close. "Don't move," he hissed, then composed his features into a pleasant mask as he went to answer the door. My mother glared at me. "Look what you've done now. Why can't you just be grateful for everything we've given you?" Before I could respond, my father returned with Mrs. Larson behind him. My teacher's expression was pleasant but determined. "I'm so sorry to interrupt your family celebration," she said smoothly. "I just realized I still have Audrey's final portfolio, and I thought she might want it for her college applications." My father's smile was rigid. "How thoughtful, but Audrey's college plans are already settled. She'll be attending State University." Mrs. Larson's eyes flicked to my face, noting the red marks on my arm. "I see. Well, perhaps she'll still want her work. Some of the best writing I've seen in 20 years of teaching." The tension in the room was palpable. My father clearly wanted Mrs. Larson gone, but couldn't risk appearing anything less than the perfect supportive parent. This unexpected interruption had created the perfect opportunity. "Actually, Dad," I said with newfound confidence, "there's something you should know." I retrieved my phone from my pocket and pulled up the audio recording app. "I've been documenting everything, the control, the threats, the physical abuse, including this conversation tonight." The color drained from my father's face. My mother made a small strangled sound. I have copies of medical records showing my broken jaw. I continued, my voice growing stronger. I have dated photographs and journal entries going back years. I have recordings of your threats. And I have witness statements. Mrs. Larson stepped forward. I've been concerned about Audrey for some time, Mr. Jensen. Enough to contact the school district's mandatory reporting system. This was news even to me. Miss Larson had gone further to protect me than I'd realized. This is absurd, my father sputtered, but the confidence was draining from his voice. Audrey had an accident. She fell down the stairs. The medical report indicates an impact consistent with a direct blow, I said quietly. Not a fall. James suddenly spoke from the corner of the room, his voice small but determined. I saw everything. I saw Dad hit her. My father turned on him with such fury that Mrs. Larson stepped between them. I believe it would be best if everyone calmed down, she said firmly. Audrey, do you feel safe remaining here tonight? Before I could answer, my father found his voice again. This is my house, my daughter. You have no right to interfere in family matters. Abusing your children isn't a family matter, Mrs. Larson replied evenly. It's a criminal matter. The word criminal hung in the air like a thunderclap. My father, who had built his entire identity around community respectability, visibly flinched. I looked directly at him. I don't want to press charges. I don't want to destroy your reputation or your career. All I want is to go to college without interference. And for you to leave James alone while he's still living here. My mother finally spoke. You would blackmail your own parents after everything we've done for you. This isn't blackmail, I said quietly. It's boundaries. I'm going to Pacific Northwest University. I'm going to study writing. I'm going to live my own life. And in return, I'll keep our family business private. My father's face contorted with rage, but for the first time in my life, I saw something else there too. Fear. He understood he was cornered. Get out, he whispered. Get out of my house. Mrs. Larson placed a steady hand on my shoulder. I think that's our cue to leave. I have a guest room ready. As I moved to follow her, James stepped forward. I'll help you pack your things. My father moved to block him, but James stood his ground. I'm just helping her pack Dad. Then she'll be gone. Isn't that what you want? It was the first time I'd ever seen my little brother stand up to our father, and despite everything, my heart swelled with pride. The next 2 weeks were a surreal transition period. I stayed at Mrs. Larson's house while finalizing my university arrangements. My father oscillated wildly between rage and manipulation. Some days he would call Mrs. Larson's phone a dozen times, alternating between threats and tearful pleas for me to come home and work this out as a family. Other days he would show up at her door with gifts claiming he had overreacted and just wanted what was best for me. My mother took a different approach. Her messages focused on guilt and obligation. Your father hasn't been sleeping, she would text. Is this how you repay us for 18 years of sacrifice? Or what will I tell our relatives about why you've abandoned the family? I maintained firm boundaries, responding only with calm, factual statements. I'm safe. I'm preparing for university. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. With Sandra from the Domestic Abuse Support Center, I finalized my safety arrangements. We created a detailed escape plan that minimized risk and maximized protection. The most dangerous period is now, Sandra warned. Your father has lost control over you, and that's when abusers are most unpredictable. Mrs. Larson helped me secure my university housing and financial aid, navigating the bureaucracy with practiced ease. I've seen too many bright students trapped in bad situations, she told me. I wasn't going to let that happen to you. The hardest part was preparing to leave James behind. We met several times at the public library, away from our parents' watchful eyes. I've set up an encrypted email account for us. I explained, writing down the details. Check it from school computers, only never at home. If anything happens, if he ever hurts you, there's money hidden in our special place. Enough for a bus ticket to Aunt Marissa's. James, now 14, and already showing the watchful wisdom of someone much older, memorized everything. I'll be okay, he assured me. He's been different since you left. Careful. like he knows he's being watched. He is being watched, I confirmed. Mrs. Larson and I have a system. If you don't check in regularly, she'll follow up. The night before my departure, I barely slept. Despite all my preparations, the thought of truly leaving was terrifying. What if my father retaliated against James? What if I couldn't manage on my own? What if the scholarship fell through? The doubts circled like vultures until dawn painted Mrs. Larson's guest room in soft light. By some stroke of luck or cosmic intervention, my father was called to an emergency at work, the morning I was scheduled to leave. My mother, never one to act independently when he wasn't present, merely watched from the kitchen window as Aunt Marissa's car pulled up to collect the last of my belongings from the garage where Mrs. Larson had been storing them. As we loaded the final box, my mother finally emerged from the house. "You'll regret this," she said, arms crossed defensively. "You're not as special as you think you are, Audrey. The real world will eat you alive without us to protect you." I studied her face, seeing for the first time not the intimidating figure of my childhood, but a deeply unhappy woman who had made her own compromises with fear long ago. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I replied simply. "I hope someday we can have a healthier relationship." "Just like your aunt," my mother sneered, glancing at Marissa. "Always thinking you're better than everyone else." "No," I corrected her gently. "Just believing I deserve better than fear and control. Everyone does, even you, Mom." Her face hardened at that, but something flickered in her eyes before she turned and walked back into the house without another word. Aunt Marissa, my father's sister who had escaped the family dynamics 15 years earlier, squeezed my shoulder. "That was brave," she said quietly. "It took me until I was 30 to say something like that to your grandmother." The drive to the airport was surreal. With each mile that passed, I felt both lighter and more terrified. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my father, who had apparently been informed of my departure. They started with cold fury, then escalated to threats, then pivoted to desperate pleas following the cycle of abuse I had documented for years. I silenced the notifications without reading beyond the previews. "He'll escalate for a while," Aunt Marissa warned, "then eventually adapt to the new reality. That's how your father has always operated." She would know. She had been the first to escape. Arriving at the university campus 3,000 miles from home was like landing on another planet. The scale of the buildings, the diversity of people, the absence of constant evaluation and judgment, it was overwhelming in the best possible way. My roommate Paige, a music major from Arizona, greeted me with easy warmth that held no hidden barbs. "You got the good side with the morning sun," she announced, helping me with my bags. "Hope you're not a late sleeper." That first night in my dorm room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of collegiate life outside my window, I experienced the strangest sensation, freedom tinged with grief. I was mourning the childhood I never had, the parents who should have supported rather than constrained me, the brother I couldn't protect completely. Yet alongside that grief was a bubbling sense of possibility that made it difficult to sleep. My first semester at Pacific Northwest University passed in a blur of adjustment and discovery. I had to learn skills most students already possessed: how to manage my own schedule without fear of punishment, how to express opinions without automatically searching for the correct response, how to accept praise without waiting for the inevitable criticism that would follow. The University Counseling Center became a lifeline. Dr. Wells, a compassionate woman with a direct manner I found reassuring, helped me understand the patterns that 18 years of emotional and physical abuse had etched into my psyche. "Recovery isn't linear," she reminded me during our weekly sessions. "Some days you'll feel completely free, and others you'll find yourself responding to old triggers as if you were still in that house." She was right. Despite the 3,000 miles between us, I still flinched at the sound of certain male voices. I still automatically cleaned my living space before Paige returned, afraid of criticism. I still apologized excessively for minor inconveniences. "That hypervigilance kept you safe in an unsafe environment," Dr. Wells explained. "It was adaptive then. Our job is to help your nervous system understand you're safe now." My communication with James continued through our secure channels. His messages were reassuring but sparse, which worried me. "Dad's mostly ignoring me," he wrote. "Mom tries to get me to talk about you, but I keep it vague." I sent him care packages addressed to a friend's house, including books with subtle messages of encouragement hidden in my notes about specific pages or chapters. The threats from my father continued, but evolved. The early direct messages, "Get home now or you'll regret it," gave way to more sophisticated manipulation. "Your mother is having health problems from the stress you've caused." When these didn't work, he tried financial leverage, threatening to report the car Aunt Marissa had helped me purchase as stolen, since it had originally been a family vehicle. Fortunately, we had anticipated this and transferred the title legally before I left. My mother's approach was more insidious. Her messages focused on undermining my confidence. "Your cousin Jennifer got straight A's her first semester. Are you managing to keep up with the work?" Or, "I ran into Mrs. Peterson who asked about you. I was so embarrassed to tell her you'd run off across the country. She seemed shocked that you'd be so impulsive." I developed a system for handling these contacts. I would read them only when I felt emotionally strong, preferably after a counseling session. I would respond with brief, neutral acknowledgments that provided no emotional fuel. "I'm doing well. Hope you are too." Eventually, I began extending the time between responses, gradually creating healthier boundaries. Paige became an unexpected source of support and normality. Having grown up with parents who respected her autonomy, while providing guidance, she modeled healthy family dynamics without even trying. When she invited me home for Thanksgiving, I experienced my first holiday without walking on eggshells. "Is Audrey your real name or a nickname?" her mother asked casually over pumpkin pie. "It's my real name," I replied automatically. "It's lovely. Did you choose it or was it given to you?" The question confused me momentarily before I realized she was making a common joke about college students reinventing themselves. But her genuine interest in who I was, not as an extension or reflection of someone else, but as my own person, brought unexpected tears. On campus, I joined a support group for survivors of family abuse. Hearing others share experiences so similar to mine helped dissolve the isolation that had defined my childhood. Together, we celebrated small victories, saying no without apologizing, setting boundaries without guilt, recognizing manipulation tactics before they worked. The academic work itself was both challenging and liberating. Professors encouraged questions rather than punishing them. They valued unique perspectives over conformity. My writing began to change, finding an authentic voice that had been suppressed for years. During winter break, when the campus largely emptied, I remained in the dorms with other students who couldn't or wouldn't go home. We formed a makeshift family, cooking communal meals in the floor kitchen, watching holiday movies, creating new traditions untainted by old wounds. A crisis erupted in February when my father appeared on campus without warning. The university's security office called to inform me he was demanding to see me, claiming a family emergency. Thanks to the safety plan I'd established with campus services when I arrived, they denied him access and escorted him off the property. That evening, with support from Dr. Wells and the campus victim advocate, I filed for a restraining order. The university provided a security escort for the next 2 weeks until the legal protections were in place. My father contested the order, but withdrew his opposition when my documentation was submitted to the court. The records I'd kept for years, the photographs, the medical reports, the audio recordings, finally served their purpose. The judge granted a 1-year order prohibiting contact. For James, I arranged a summer program that would bring him to Seattle for 6 weeks, ostensibly for academic enrichment, but actually to give him respite and let us plan his eventual exit strategy. Aunt Marissa opened her home to him, showing him the same kindness she had shown me. "They're different with me," James reported during his visit. "Quieter, more careful. Dad hardly ever raises his voice now, and Mom keeps asking if I'm happy in this weird way." "They're afraid," Aunt Marissa explained. "They've lost control of one child and don't want to lose another. But that fear won't last forever. We need a plan for when James turns 18. My own healing journey continued through therapy, through writing, through building new relationships based on mutual respect rather than power and control. The second semester of my freshman year, I underwent reconstructive dental surgery to fully repair the damage to my jaw. The university health insurance I'd fought to secure covered most of the cost. The surgeon, a kind woman with steady hands, studied my x-rays carefully. The original break was never set quite right, she observed. Was it a car accident? I hesitated only briefly before answering truthfully. My father hit me for disagreeing with him. She met my eyes, her gaze neither pitying nor disbelieving. I'm sorry that happened to you. We'll make sure it heals properly this time. That summer, I secured an internship with a literary magazine that built my professional confidence and connections. I began publishing short pieces under a pen name, finding power in shaping narratives on my own terms. 2 years after my escape, James graduated high school early and joined me on the West Coast, moving into Aunt Marissa's spare room and enrolling in community college. Our parents' control had diminished as their fear of exposure grew, allowing him to leave with less drama than I had faced. "They're telling everyone I got a special academic opportunity," he reported with a grim smile. "Anything to save face." Together with Aunt Marissa, we built a chosen family based on mutual support and genuine care. Holiday gatherings became celebrations rather than performances. Achievements were acknowledged without being weaponized. Mistakes were treated as learning opportunities rather than character indictments. The journey of healing continues daily. Some wounds leave permanent marks. I still startle easily. I still occasionally hear my mother's critical voice in my head when I look in the mirror. I still feel a flutter of panic when the phone rings unexpectedly. But these reactions no longer control my life. 3 years after leaving home, I made the difficult decision to share my story publicly through a campus event for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Speaking my truth aloud with James and Aunt Marissa in the audience supporting me was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. "Abuse thrives in silence," I told the audience. "It grows stronger in isolation. By speaking our stories, we not only reclaim our voices, but create space for others to find theirs." The broken jaw that was meant to silence me ultimately gave me my voice. The pain that was intended to control me became the catalyst for freedom. What my parents never understood was that in trying to break my spirit, they forged my determination. If you're watching this and recognizing your own story and mine, please know you're not alone. The path to freedom looks different for everyone, but it begins with the recognition that you deserve better. Safety planning is essential. Documentation matters. And support, whether from professionals, trusted teachers, or found family, makes all the difference. I sometimes think about what I would tell my younger self if I could travel back in time. I would say, trust your instincts. The discomfort you feel isn't oversensitivity, it's your inner wisdom recognizing harm. Your voice matters even when others try to silence it. And most importantly, the family you build can heal the wounds from the family you were born into. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after someone tried to control or silence you? Share your experience in the comments if you feel comfortable. Like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. And remember that healing isn't just possible, it's your right. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the strength to write your own new ending.